A female billionaire took her son out for dinner. But when she saw a hungry single father and his little daughter, she did something unbelievable. Bayou City Diner wasn't anything special. Scratched wooden tables, creaky chairs, yellowed lights. The smell of fries and grilled meat. An ordinary scent, but one that made people feel at ease, because no one here had to pretend they were richer or more sophisticated than they really were. Camilla Duarte was sitting at a table near the window, watching her son chew his fries with the kind of concentration only a 5-year-old could have. Leo had a streak of ketchup at the corner of his mouth and grinned brightly between every bite. "It's really good, Mom," Leo said. Camilla smiled. "I'm glad, sweetheart." Looking at her now, no one would think this was the billionaire behind a series of investments that kept Houston's business world on edge. She wore black jeans, a simple gray shirt, soft sneakers. No gold jewelry, no $1 million watch. Here, she only wanted to be a mother, not Camilla Duarte with the weight of hundreds of numbers on her shoulders. The restaurant door opened with a gentle chime above the entrance. 2 figures stepped inside. A man with messy brown hair tied half up in a loose knot. Simple clothes, faded blue jeans, a slightly wrinkled white shirt, sneakers worn out at the toes. He held the hand of a little girl the same age as Leo. The child had bright, curious eyes, dark brown hair falling over her shoulders, and wore a pale pink jacket far too big for her. Camilla noticed how the man looked around. It wasn't the look of someone searching for a seat. It was the look of someone checking whether he was allowed to stay here, whether this place was safe. He walked up to the counter, his voice so low it nearly vanished into the murmurs of the other customers. "A cup of tap water, please," he said softly, almost ashamed. The server nodded, grabbed a plastic cup, filled it with ice water, and handed it to him. The little girl tugged at her father's shirt hem with tiny fingers. "Daddy, I'm hungry." Her voice was so small it almost dissolved into the noise of the diner, but Camilla heard it, and so did Leo. The boy stopped chewing and turned toward them. He looked at the girl with dark hair, then down at their table, still full of food. Brian took the cup of water and led his daughter to an empty table in the corner, far from the crowd. He sat across from her and lovingly brushed her brown hair aside. "Have a little water, okay? When we get home, Daddy will cook dinner." Nia obeyed, but her eyes quietly darted toward the other tables, then quickly looked away, as if she knew she shouldn't expect anything. Leo set his fork on the table. "Mom?" Camilla turned toward him. "Yes, sweetheart?" He gently pointed toward the corner table. "That girl, she's hungry." Camilla followed his gaze. She saw Brian trying to distract his daughter, speaking softly, smiling even though his eyes were tired. She saw Nia swinging her legs on the chair, far too quiet for a 5-year-old. Leo looked back up at his mother, his face serious, as if he had just discovered something important. "Mom, I want to share my food with them." Those words made Camilla's chest tighten, not out of pity, but pride. A kind of pride that told a mother she was raising a truly kind human being. She touched his shoulder gently, smiling. "Do something even better, Leo. Invite them to eat with us." Leo's face lit up. "Really, Mom? Really?" He didn't need to hear it twice. Leo hopped off his chair and scampered straight toward the father and daughter. "Hi." Both looked up, startled. Nia blinked. "Hi." Leo grinned. "Do you want to eat with us? My mom said it's okay." Brian froze. What? Leo pointed at Camilla, who was already standing up and walking toward them. "Sorry, my son is a bit enthusiastic," Camilla said. "But if you don't mind, would you two like to join us for dinner?" Brian's face flushed instantly. He shook his head. "No, thank you. We can't." "Please," Leo interrupted, his eyes wide. "I have a toy car. I can show her." Nia looked up at her father with hopeful, shining eyes, but said nothing. "Daddy." Brian pressed his lips together. He was clearly uncomfortable, but just as clearly moved by their kindness. Camilla bent down slightly, lowering her voice to something gentler, more respectful. "It's not charity. It's just, we have plenty of food, and I think the kids would really enjoy eating together." Brian looked at Nia, looked at Leo, looked at Camilla, searching for some hidden motive. He found nothing but sincerity. He let out a slow breath. "All right. Thank you." Leo jumped with excitement. "Come on!" The two children ran ahead. Brian slowly stood, still embarrassed, adjusting the old bag on his shoulder. Camilla waited for him to pass, then walked beside him. "I'm Camilla. This is Leo." "Brian, and this is Nia. It's nice to meet you, sir," she said. He only nodded. If you're listening to this story and your heart has softened just a little, don't forget to subscribe to follow the next chapters. Stories about kindness always have a way of making us see life differently. But Camilla didn't know. This simple dinner would pull her into a chain of events even a billionaire couldn't control. And the first thing that shocked her, and changed everything, happened that very night. Can you guess what it was? When they reached the table, Camilla called the server over and ordered an extra full meal, orange juice, and additional fries. The server quickly jotted it down and brought everything out. Camilla placed the steaming plate in front of Nia. "For you." Nia looked at her father, silently asking for permission. Brian nodded, his eyes brightening. The little girl carefully picked up her fork and began to eat. Slowly, chewing thoroughly, not rushing, but not hiding the fact that she was genuinely hungry. Leo sat beside her, talking nonstop as he ate. "Do you like cars? I love them. I have a red one. It's the fastest ever." "I've never had a toy car before," Nia said quietly. Leo stopped chewing and stared at her like that was impossible. "Never?" Nia shook her head. "Then you can play with mine," he said, already pulling a metal car out of his coat pocket and placing it on the table. "Look, it goes this fast." Leo slid the car across the table, making engine noises with his mouth. Nia's eyes sparkled like two stars. "Really? Really?" The two children laughed, their laughter clear and bright, and it made Brian close his eyes for a second. Camilla watched silently. Something special was happening here. Not just a meal, a connection, a simple act of kindness, but a rare one. Brian looked at his daughter with a tight feeling in his chest. Camilla noticed. She said nothing. She simply pushed the basket of fries a little closer to him. "Eat. They're still hot." Brian hesitated, but took one. It was delicious. He couldn't even remember the last time he'd eaten something warm like this, without rushing, without guilt. "Thank you," he said softly. "No need to thank me," Camilla replied. "Yes, there is. You don't even know me." Camilla shrugged. "Leo invited you. I'm just following his lead." He smiled for the first time since entering the diner. A small smile, but a real one. "Your son is very kind." "I'm learning from him," Camilla said, still watching Leo. Brian paused. "What do you mean?" Camilla continued watching Leo, who was now making the toy car fly, while Nia laughed. "I spend a lot of time focusing on work. I forget what really matters. Leo reminds me every day." Brian didn't know what to say. The simplicity of her confession surprised him, so he just ate another fry and let the silence speak for him. The kids, meanwhile, couldn't stay quiet for a single minute. Nia laughed more than she had in weeks. Leo beamed as he showed off his car, inventing every kind of story. "Did you see how it flies?" Leo held the car up. "Vroom!" Nia mimicked him, raising her little hands. The two laughed together as if they were siblings. Camilla glanced at Brian. "They're best friends already." "They are," he agreed softly. "Nia doesn't usually talk this much." "Leo doesn't either. He's quieter at home." Brian looked at her, intrigued. "Really? Really?" I think kids just understand kids. Maybe, Brian muttered. They continued eating. The conversation was light, unforced. Camilla asked where he lived, whether Nia was in school, simple things. Brian answered without going into detail. She didn't push. When they finished, Nia pushed her empty plate away and sighed with satisfaction. That was so good. I'm glad, Camilla said. Would you like dessert? Nia's eyes lit up, but Brian quickly responded. No, thank you. You've already helped us too much. Daddy, Nia began, but stopped when she saw her father's expression. Camilla understood immediately, so she shifted gears. All right, but if you ever want to come back another day, we can arrange that. The kids like playing together. Brian looked at Nia, who was holding Leo's toy car like a treasure. Maybe, he said, without making a promise. Leo hopped off his chair. Nia, come look. You can make it go this high. He placed the car on the back of the chair and let it slide down like a ramp. Nia laughed and tried to copy him. Camilla and Brian watched quietly. The diner continued humming around them. But at that table, a small bubble of peace seemed to exist. Thank you. Truly, Brian said again, this time looking straight at Camilla. You don't know what this means to us. Camilla held his gaze for a moment. In his eyes, she saw exhaustion, worry, but also something very clear. Pride. I think I understand some of it, she said softly. He looked away, too moved to respond. After a few minutes, Brian stood and called to his daughter. Nia, honey, we have to go. Nia pouted but obeyed. She carefully returned the toy car to Leo. Thank you for letting me play. Keep it, Leo said, pushing the car back toward her. I have lots more at home. This one is yours now. Nia looked at her father, unsure. Brian was clearly touched, but he couldn't refuse this on her behalf. All right, but make sure you say thank you properly. Nia turned to Leo and, without warning, hugged him. A tight hug, the kind kids give when they really like someone. Thank you so much. Leo turned red to his ears but grinned. You're welcome. Brian slung the old bag over his shoulder, getting ready to leave. Before stepping away, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a few wrinkled bills. Let me pay for Nia's part. It's the least I can do. Camilla raised her hand, gentle but firm. No need. But it was my pleasure, truly. Brian slowly put the money away, wrestling with his pride. But in the end, he only nodded. Thank you, Camilla. From the bottom of my heart. See you next time, Brian. He gave a faint smile, a tired but grateful one, and walked out with Nia. The little girl waved at Leo through the glass door, clutching the red toy car tightly. Leo waved back, still smiling, watching them disappear down the street. When they were gone, Camilla sat back down and looked at her son. You were wonderful. You know that? Leo shrugged, still staring out the window. She was hungry, Mom. Camilla brushed his hair and smiled, feeling her heart swell with pride. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the smallest people. And that night, in a simple diner, two families walked away with hearts a little lighter than when they arrived. The alarm rang at 5:30 a.m. Brian opened his eyes in the dark and shut it off before it woke Nia. He lay there for another minute, staring at the cracked ceiling. His body was tired. Always tired. He slowly got up, placed his feet on the cold floor, and walked into the bathroom. While he waited, he looked at his reflection in the mirror, blurred by steam. 29 years old. Looking like 40. He showered quickly, put on his usual jeans and a clean shirt. He tied his messy brown hair into a low bun. He grabbed the old bag hanging on the chair and checked his phone. One message. Hi, Brian. I have to cancel today's cleaning job. Something unexpected came up. Sorry for the inconvenience. Brian closed his eyes, took a slow breath. Third time this month. Always last minute. Always a vague excuse. Brian typed a polite reply. "It's okay. Let me know if you need anything." He put his phone away and walked to Nia's room. The little girl was sleeping, holding an old stuffed bear. Brian sat on the edge of the bed and gently brushed his daughter's brown hair. "Sweetheart, wake up. Daddy has to go." Nia slowly opened her bright eyes and blinked. "You're leaving?" "Yes, Mrs. Evelyn will be here soon." "Okay." Nia rubbed her eyes and sat up in bed. Brian helped her get dressed, prepared a simple breakfast, buttered toast and milk, and waited for the neighbor to arrive. Mrs. Evelyn Carter was a 60-year-old woman who lived in the apartment next door and watched Nia whenever Brian had to leave early. "Good morning, Brian," Mrs. Evelyn said as she walked in with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Evelyn. Thank you so much." "Oh, don't be silly. Nia is such a lovely child." Brian bent down and hugged his daughter. "Daddy will be back later. Be good, okay?" "Yes," Nia said, already sitting at the table, slowly chewing her toast. Brian left the apartment with a heavy heart. It always hurt to leave Nia. Always. He took the bus and went to the neighborhood where he had the best chance of finding work. He spent the whole morning calling old clients, asking if they needed any manual labor done that day. Some didn't answer. Others said they didn't need anything at the moment. "We'll call if we do, Brian." Always that sentence. By late afternoon, he managed to get a one-day job scheduled, 3 days from now. At least it was something, even though he knew it wasn't enough. He arrived home in the late afternoon. Nia was drawing at the kitchen table with half-used colored pencils. "Hi, Daddy." "Hi, sweetheart," Brian said, lifting his daughter for a quick kiss. "What are you drawing?" "A house with a garden." Brian looked at the drawing. A small, colorful house, flowers in the front, a yellow sun in the sky. "It's beautiful." Nia smiled proudly. "We'll have a house like this one day, right, Daddy?" Brian felt his heart tighten. "One day, sweetheart. One day." After Mrs. Evelyn said goodbye, Brian made dinner, rice, beans, and fried eggs. Simple, but it was all they had left. He put more on Nia's plate, less on his own. "Daddy, aren't you eating more?" Nia asked, looking at his plate. "Daddy ate a lot at lunch. I'm full." Nia nodded, completely believing him. Brian swallowed the truth, along with the dull ache in his stomach. After dinner, Brian bathed his daughter, helped her into an old but clean pair of pajamas, and put her to bed. He read a short story, the same one Nia requested every night, and kissed her forehead. "Sleep well, Daddy's treasure." "Good night, Daddy. I love you." "I love you too." He turned off the light and closed the door quietly. Brian walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Not much there. A few eggs, a piece of cheese, half a carton of milk, a few wilted vegetables. He closed the fridge and went to the small table in the living room where he kept the bills. He sorted through the envelopes. Electric bill, water bill, rent. He calculated in his mind. Even with the day job he managed to get for 3 days from now, he was still short. Brian was always short. And tomorrow wouldn't be any easier than today. It was a sunny Sunday morning. Brian decided to take Nia to the park. It cost nothing, and the little girl deserved some joy. He prepared 2 simple sandwiches, filled a water bottle, and they headed out. Herman Park was small, but lovely. A few swings, a slide, wooden benches under the shade of trees. There were always children running around, shouting, laughing. "Daddy, can I go on the swings?" "Okay, sweetheart, but stay where I can see you." "Yes, Daddy." Nia ran off, her worn-out shoes hitting the dusty ground. Brian sat on an empty bench, placed the bag beside him, and watched his daughter. Nia climbed onto the swing and began to sway, her brown hair flying in the wind. Brian smiled. Moments like this were rare, but worth everything. Suddenly, Nia stopped swinging. She looked toward one side of the park, and her eyes widened. "Leo!" She jumped off the swing and ran. Brian immediately stood up, trying to see where his daughter was going. And then he saw it. Leo was near the slide, holding a ball, and beside him, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, was Camilla. Nia ran straight to Leo without hesitation. "Leo, it's you!" The boy turned around and his face lit up. "Nia!" The two hugged like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. Camilla laughed and lifted her head, searching. She found Brian standing a few steps away. Their eyes met. She smiled and waved. Brian waved back, feeling his face warm a little. Camilla walked toward him with both hands in her pockets. "Hi." "Hi," Brian replied, still a bit shy. "What a coincidence, huh?" "Yeah, I didn't expect to see you here." "We come almost every Sunday," Camilla said, glancing at the kids playing with the ball. "Leo loves this park." "Nia does too. It's her favorite place." Camilla gestured to the bench. "Do you want to sit? I think they'll play for a while." Brian hesitated, but eventually agreed. "Sure." They sat on the bench, maintaining a polite distance. They watched the children in silence for a few minutes. Leo kicked the ball to Nia, and she ran after it, laughing loudly. "They look like siblings," Camilla observed. "They really do," Brian agreed, smiling softly. Camilla turned slightly toward him. "Does Nia have any siblings?" Brian shook his head. "No, it's just the two of us." Camilla nodded. She didn't ask more, didn't pry, just accepted it. Brian appreciated that. "And Leo?" he asked gently. "It's just the two of us," Camilla replied. "Leo's father passed away when he turned 2. Brian felt a sting in his chest. "I'm very sorry." "Thank you. It's been 3 years. It's still sad, but we're learning to live with it." He didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet, and Camilla seemed grateful for that. After a peaceful moment, Camilla broke the silence. "Did you grow up in this city?" "No," Brian answered. "I'm from another state. Moved here to find a better life. Or at least, I hoped so." "Has it gotten better?" Brian gave a sad smile. "I'm still trying." Camilla nodded without judgment. "And you? Were you born here?" "I was born here, grew up here, studied here, worked here. I've actually never left. It must be nice to have roots." "Yeah." She watched her son for a moment, then said softly, "But sometimes I feel like I'm missing out on things. I get so caught up in work that I forget how to enjoy life." Brian looked at her, surprised by her honesty. "At least you realize it. Some people never do." Camilla gave a faint smile. "True." Silence settled again, but it was a warm, comfortable one. "So, when you were little, what did you want to be?" Camilla asked, turning more toward him. Brian blinked, surprised by the question. "Me? Oh, I don't know. Maybe a teacher. I liked helping other kids learn to read." "That's adorable." Camilla tilted her head. "And you? What did you want to be?" "A firefighter." Brian laughed out loud. "You're kidding?" "I'm serious. I thought red fire trucks were the coolest thing ever." "Every kid thinks that." "Exactly." They both laughed, and for the first time, Brian felt his body truly relax, as if he was allowed to breathe deeper. "And what about now?" Camilla asked. "Do you still have dreams?" Brian was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Small ones. To have a steady job, not worry so much about money. To see Nia grow up happy. Those are beautiful dreams. And you?" "Those are beautiful dreams," Camilla echoed softly. "To see Leo grow into a good person, not ruined by money or material things. To teach him to value what truly matters." Brian felt a tug in his chest. It was rare to find someone who thought that way. "You're doing great. Your kid is wonderful." "Thank you, and so is Nia. You're raising her well." Brian turned his face away, overwhelmed for a moment. I'm just doing my best." And that's more than a lot of people do. They watched the children again. Leo had taken off his shoes and was running barefoot. Nia laughed, trying to imitate him. That was when Camilla noticed Nia's shoes were extremely worn. The front seam had come undone. She could see the little girl's toes inside. She didn't say anything. She simply stored that detail in her heart. Without asking, without judging. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Brian was preparing breakfast when he heard the mail being pushed through the slot. He left the toast on the grill and went to get it. A white envelope. Sender. Lone Star Residential Group. He knew what it was even before opening it. He slowly tore the envelope open and read, "Dear Tenant, Annual Rent Adjustment." Brian's eyes stopped at the only part that mattered. A $200 increase per month. $200 he did not have. He sat down on the kitchen chair and read the letter 3 more times as if the numbers would magically change. They did not. "Daddy, the toast is burning." Brian jumped up and pulled the toast out. The edges were black. He scraped off the burnt parts and spread butter. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." "It's okay," Nia said, taking a bite without complaining. Brian drank his coffee in silence, his mind spinning. He needed more work. He needed it urgently. After dropping Nia off at school, he called every client he had. Most didn't answer. By late morning, he received a text. It was from Mrs. Rosa Delgado, a monthly client who always called Brian every Monday. "Brian, I have to let you know. I won't need the service anymore. My daughter moved back home and will handle the cleaning. Sorry. Good luck." Monday was the day she always called him, the day that helped him pay part of the rent. Now it was gone. He took a deep breath and replied, "It's okay. Thank you for everything." He put his phone away and leaned his head against the wall. He needed to stay calm. He would figure it out. He always did. On Thursday, he received another call. It was from Mrs. Megan Foxworth, who sometimes called him for day jobs. "Brian, I found someone else. She charges less. Sorry." "It's okay, Mrs. Megan. Thank you." "Good luck." "Yes." He hung up and stood still in the middle of the street. People hurried past him. No one noticed. No one saw. He was invisible. He went home without any work. He paid for the bus and counted the money left in his wallet. Not enough. Not even close. Friday morning, when he first opened his eyes, he saw a new message from Mrs. Angela Ruiz, who had booked him for Saturday. "Brian, need to reschedule. House is a mess. Husband is sick again. I'll let you know." Brian stared at the screen, not replying immediately. His throat tightened. He stood up, walked into the kitchen, and sat in the chair. He took out the notebook where he kept his bills. He recalculated everything. Even if he cut every unnecessary expense, and there was almost nothing left to cut, he was still short. He thought about asking to borrow money. But from whom? He had no family here, no close friends. Mrs. Evelyn had already helped enough. He closed the notebook with a sense of despair. He couldn't give up. But he also didn't know what else to do. Brian spent all of Saturday and Sunday looking for work. He left resumes at grocery stores, supermarkets, diners, markets. No one was hiring. Nia noticed something was wrong. "Daddy, are you sad?" "No, sweetheart. Just tired." "I'll draw a picture for you, okay? Drawings always make people happy." Brian hugged her tightly. "You're wonderful." Nia ran to her room and came back with paper and colored pencils. She sat on the floor and began drawing. Brian watched, trying to hold himself together. After a few minutes, Nia looked up. "All done. This is me and you. And I wrote, 'I love Daddy.' Do you like it?" Brian held the paper in his trembling hands. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you." "Are you happy now?" Brian forced a smile. "I'm happy." But inside, he was breaking. After dropping Nia at school, Brian went straight home and laid all the bills on the kitchen table. Rent, electricity, water, food, bus fare. He calculated again and again. There was no way. He thought about asking for an extension, but the landlord was notoriously cold. He had evicted tenants for being just 1 week late. He called more clients, left voicemails, sent WhatsApp messages. Everything fell into silence. In the afternoon, Nia ran toward him after school, bouncing with excitement. "Daddy, tomorrow my class has a special snack day." "That's great, sweetheart." "Daddy, are you okay? Your eyes are red." "Just allergies, sweetheart." Nia held his hand. "Let's go home." "Yeah, let's go." On the way, Nia hummed a little tune. Brian looked at her, and his heart clenched. Nia didn't deserve this life. She deserved more. She deserved the whole world. That night, after putting Nia to bed and kissing her forehead, Brian sat alone in the living room with a blanket over his shoulders, staring at the dark ceiling. He thought about giving up, thought about going back to his old state. But there was nothing left there. He thought about asking someone for help. But who? No one. He thought about Camilla, about the way she talked, the way she didn't judge, the way she looked at him as if he wasn't invisible. But no, he couldn't ask her for help. They barely knew each other, and she had already done too much. He had to figure this out on his own. He had to. Tuesday morning, the phone rang. A former client who hadn't called in months. "Brian, are you free Thursday? I need someone to clean." Brian responded in less than 5 seconds. "Yes, what time?" 8 a.m. "Okay, thank you." One job, just one. But it was exactly what he desperately needed. A small breath of air in a suffocating month. Brian got up, made coffee, woke Nia, and prepared them for the day. He kept going. He always kept going. Even when everything seemed to be falling apart. Even when the world felt like it was collapsing. He kept going. For Nia. Always for Nia. Sundays at the park became a routine. Every week, Brian and Nia arrived around 10 a.m., and every week, Camilla and Leo were already there, waiting. The kids ran to each other the moment they saw one another. Camilla and Brian quietly greeted each other with a smile and sat on the same familiar bench. Brian spoke much less. He still smiled whenever Nia ran back to excitedly tell a story, but the smile never quite reached his eyes. His shoulders looked heavy, as if he was carrying something invisible. She didn't ask, at least not in front of the children. They sat watching Leo and Nia invent yet another new superhero game. Today, the two of them were saving the park from imaginary villains. Leo put on a comically deep voice. Nia giggled, running in circles on the grass. "Are you okay?" Camilla asked gently, glancing at Brian. Brian started. "Who? Me?" He gave a small laugh, avoiding her gaze. "I'm fine. Just a little tired." Camilla nodded slowly, but was clearly unconvinced. She knew that kind of tired. It wasn't just physical. It was the exhaustion of someone fighting alone. She stayed silent for a few minutes, just watching. Then Camilla quietly pulled the bag beside her closer. "By the way, I brought some snacks today. I accidentally made a few too many sandwiches at home," she said casually. "Do you want some?" Brian looked at the bag and hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," Camilla gently cut in. "But if no one eats them, they'll go to waste, and the kids will definitely love them." She stood up and called to the kids. "Leo, Nia, come here for snacks." They ran over, sweaty and full of energy. Nia's blonde hair stuck to her forehead, her cheeks flushed from all the running. Camilla opened the bag and took out sandwiches wrapped in foil, juice boxes, some pre-cut fruit in a container, and cookies. It was obvious she had prepared for more than just the two of them. "For me too, Auntie?" Nia asked, eyes shining. "Of course," Camilla said, handing her a sandwich. "Take anything you like." The kids sat on the grass together and began to eat. Leo gave half of his sandwich to Nia, and she accepted it with a smile. Camilla handed another sandwich to Brian. "Here, eat. I'm serious." Brian took it, his throat tightening. He understood exactly what she was doing. She saw that he was struggling, but she didn't pry, didn't dig. She didn't turn it into charity, didn't make him into someone being pitied. She simply shared. "Thank you," he said softly, eyes fixed on the sandwich. "It's nothing," Camilla replied, her voice light as the breeze. They ate in silence. Brian couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten something that tasted this good. Simple things, but prepared with care. You could tell someone had put thought into making them. Nia ate 2 sandwiches and still grabbed an apple, biting into it with satisfaction. "This is so good, Aunt Camilla. I'm glad you like it." When they finished eating, Camilla carefully put all the trash back into the bag. She watched the kids run off again, chasing each other between the trees. "Brian," she said, her voice gentle and cautious, "I have a few friends who need someone for day cleaning. Would you like me to give them your number?" Brian turned quickly toward her, eyes wide. "Really? Really? They're trustworthy people. I've known them for years. Good people. If you want me to, of course." His eyes began to sting. I do. Yes. Thank you." Camilla shrugged, as if it wasn't a big deal. "I'll send them your number today. They might call this week." "Thank you, Camilla, from the bottom of my heart." She looked at him with a calm, deep, warm gaze. "When we care about someone, we help them. That's all." Brian turned away, his heart racing, his ears burning. That sentence echoed in his head longer than he dared admit. The following Wednesday, Brian received 3 calls in a row. All of them were Camilla's friends. All of them needed day cleaning. All of them spoke kindly, respectfully, paid properly, and had clear hours. Brian accepted them all. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe. That maybe, just maybe, he would be able to pay that month's bills. On the Sundays after that, Camilla always brought snacks. Sometimes it was sandwiches with different fillings, sometimes fresh fruit already cut up, sometimes homemade cookies she insisted she had baked with Leo. She always said she'd made too much, or that there was no way they could finish it all at home. Brian knew she was lying, but he accepted it with quiet gratitude because he knew she did it to protect his dignity. On another Sunday, rain suddenly poured down just as they were about to leave. It came fast, dumping from the sky as if someone had tipped a giant bucket of water. Camilla looked at the dark sky, and then at Brian, who was packing Nia's things into a bag. "Did you come by bus?" "We always take the bus." "Let me drive you home. The rain's too heavy." Brian hesitated, biting his lip. "You don't have to." "I know. But it'll be a while before a bus comes, and Nia will be soaked. It's getting cold, too." Nia was standing next to Leo, holding his hand, tugging at her father's shirt. "Daddy, I want to ride with Leo." Brian looked at his daughter, her eyes shining with hope, then at Camilla, and sighed. "Okay. Then, sorry to trouble you." Camilla's car was nice, but discreet. Nothing flashy. Leo and Nia sat in the back seat, talking non-stop about the games they'd invented. Camilla drove calmly, and Brian sat in silence in the passenger seat, watching the rain on the window. "Where do you live?" Camilla asked, eyes on the road. Brian gave her the address, and she entered it into the GPS. They rode in comfortable silence. The rain beat against the windshield, and the radio played a soft song. When they pulled up in front of the building where Brian rented, Camilla stopped the car. "Thank you for driving us home," Brian said. "It's nothing. Next time it rains on a Sunday, just consider this a given." Brian got out and helped Nia out of the car. They waved before heading into the building. Camilla stayed there, watching until they were safely inside and the door closed. Then she drove away. From that day on, whenever it rained, Camilla drove them home. She never made it seem like a favor. She always said it was on her way, even when it clearly wasn't. Brian knew, but he didn't argue anymore, because deep down he was grateful, and because her presence made his heart feel lighter. The park meetups slowly became the most beautiful part of the week for both families. Leo and Nia couldn't be separated now. They played every game they could think of, invented complicated stories, laughed non-stop, shared snacks, helped each other climb trees. They were like real siblings. And Camilla and Brian talked more. They talked about the books they liked, the music they listened to when they were young, childhood memories, the small dreams they still kept inside. Camilla talked about her late husband, her voice gentle, filled with longing but not bitterness. Brian listened carefully, without judgment, simply being there. Brian talked about the struggles of raising Nia alone, not going into the harshest details, but honest about the weight he carried. Camilla listened without offering solutions or advice. Bit by bit, they began to truly trust each other. One Sunday, Nia tripped while running after Leo and scraped her knee on the pavement. She burst into loud, startled tears, the cry of a child who has really been hurt. Brian started running toward her, but Camilla got there first. She gently picked the little girl up. "Easy, sweetheart. Let me see." Nia sobbed, clutching her knee with her small hands. "It hurts, Aunt Camilla." Camilla sat on the bench and gently placed Nia on her lap. Brian arrived a second later, worried, his face pale. "Let me see, sweetheart." "It's just a scrape," Camilla said calmly, examining the girl's knee. "Nothing serious. I have bandages in the car. I'll be right back." She went to the car and came back with a first aid kit. She carefully cleaned Nia's knee with a wet wipe, applied antibiotic ointment, and put on a colorful bandage printed with little yellow stars. "There, now you're a real superhero. Every superhero has scars from battle." Nia stopped crying and looked at the bandage with admiration. "Really? Really? Superman has a lot. So does Batman." The girl smiled, tears still wet on her cheeks, and hopped off her lap. "Thank you, Aunt Camilla. Now I'm strong." And she ran back to play with Leo, who was waiting eagerly. Brian looked at Camilla with eyes full of tears. "Thank you." "No need to thank me. I've had practice. Leo is always getting hurt." But the way she took care of Nia, so gently, so lovingly, as if she were her own daughter, reached a very deep place inside Brian. Weeks went by. Camilla kept finding small ways to help. Always discreet, always respectful, never loud. Once she brought a new coloring book for Nia, saying she had bought the wrong one, and the store wouldn't take it back. Another time, she brought some of Leo's clothes that no longer fit, asking if Brian knew anyone who could use them. The clothes were practically new. Brian knew what she was doing, but she did it with so much care, with such delicacy, that he couldn't refuse, because she never made him feel small. She never made him feel lesser. And slowly, he began to feel something else. Not just gratitude, affection, admiration, something that made his heart beat faster whenever he saw her arrive at the park. One Sunday, while the kids were playing hide-and-seek, Camilla looked at Brian and smiled. "Every week, I look forward to Sunday." Brian was slightly taken aback. "You do too?" She smiled, her eyes still on the children. "Because I know I'll see you too. It just makes the whole week feel more worth it." He didn't know how to respond, so he just smiled, his heart racing. Camilla didn't say more, but inside her, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time was quietly returning. Nia jumped into Brian's lap, suddenly full of energy. "Daddy, can I go play at Leo's house one day?" Brian blinked. "We have to ask Leo's mom, too." "You can come any time," Camilla said immediately, her voice sincere. "If you're okay with it, maybe on a Saturday. The kids would love it." Nia pressed her hands together, her eyes sparkling. "Please, Daddy, I promise I'll be good." Brian looked over at Camilla. Are you sure? Absolutely. And you can come too if you'd like. We can have lunch. Something simple. Pizza, maybe. Brian hesitated, but seeing his daughter's bright eyes, he slowly nodded. All right, we can try. Nia let out a joyful scream and ran straight to Leo. The two of them jumped up and down, hand in hand, like they'd just won the lottery. Camilla and Brian exchanged a look and laughed together. I don't think there's any going back now, Brian said. I don't think so either, Camilla agreed, smiling. And for the first time in a long while, Brian wasn't afraid of that. Because, with Camilla, everything felt lighter, safer, more solid. At the end of that day, as they stood saying goodbye, Camilla instinctively held out her hand. Brian took it. She held his hand a little longer than usual. I'm glad we met at Bayou City Diner. Brian squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. So am I. And as they walked away, each going their own way, both of them knew something had changed between them. It was no longer just a simple park friendship. It was something bigger, deeper, something that was growing slowly, steadily, without hurry, and they could both feel it. Thursday started like any other day. Brian woke up early, got Nia ready for school, dropped her off with Mrs. Evelyn to watch her, then took the bus up to the wealthy part of the city. He had managed to get a one-day job in a luxury building through one of Camilla's acquaintances. The building was impressive. Marble lobby, security at the entrance, mirrors in the elevators. Brian felt small walking in there, but he took a deep breath and kept going. The apartment was on the 15th floor, vast and completely empty. White walls, gleaming tile floors, large windows looking straight over the city. It was being prepared for sale. The real estate agent, Laura King, had hired Brian and quickly explained. I need you to leave everything absolutely spotless. We'll be showing the apartment this afternoon to some important clients. Call me if anything comes up. You can count on me. Laura left, leaving him alone in the enormous space. He changed into his work clothes, old pants, a simple shirt, worn sneakers. He tied his messy brown hair into a tight bun and started working. He cleaned each room carefully. Bathrooms, kitchen, windows. Everything had to shine. Around 2 p.m., he was kneeling in the living room, scrubbing the floor with a cloth. A bucket of water and soap sat beside him. His hands were red from all the scrubbing. He was so focused he didn't even hear footsteps in the hallway. The door suddenly opened. Brian looked up, startled. A man in a suit walked in, graying hair, briefcase in hand. Behind him were 3 others, 2 assistants with tablets, and an investment manager in glasses with a serious expression. And then Camilla Duarte appeared. Brian felt his heart stop. She was wearing a suit, a flawless dark suit that probably cost more than he made in 6 months. A crisp white shirt without a single wrinkle, polished shoes. Her hair was slicked back neatly, her makeup subtle and perfect. Her face was serious, focused. She was on the phone as she walked in. Yes, I've reviewed the numbers. The price increase is within projections. We can close. Her voice was low, firm, authoritative. It was not the gentle voice that spoke to him at the park. It was the voice of a leader. Brian was still kneeling on the floor, with the bucket of water beside him, cleaning cloth in hand, old clothes clinging to his body. The real estate agent started talking, pointing out different parts of the apartment. As you can see, it's a spacious unit. 3,000 square feet, 3 suites, all with walk-in closets, a catering balcony, great views. Camilla hung up, swept her gaze around the room, her eyes cold, sharp, calculating. How much will the renovation cost? We estimate between 80 and 100,000, the investment manager replied, checking his tablet. Acceptable. This floor has potential. Resale price after renovation? 2.5 million. Maybe 2.8 if we go with high-end finishes. Camilla nodded, thinking, reasonable. Let's go with high-end finishes. I want this closed fast. 2 weeks. Maximum. She walked through the apartment, listening, asking questions, making decisions, every sentence involving hundreds of thousands, millions, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Brian pressed himself behind a door that was half open. They still hadn't noticed him, too focused on the unit, the numbers, the profit. He couldn't take his eyes off Camilla. She was powerful, elegant, influential, completely different from the Camilla at the park. This was Camilla Duarte, the billionaire, the investor, the woman who moved millions of dollars with a signature. And he was kneeling on the floor, in old clothes, with hands red from scrubbing. A cleaner. The shame hit him like a wave. Hard, suffocating. I don't belong in her world. The thought flashed through him, sharp, painful, undeniable. He had been naive. He'd thought they were alike, that she was just another single mom trying to raise her child, someone like him. But she wasn't. She belonged to that world, a world of expensive suits, million-dollar apartments, life-changing decisions made with a pen stroke, and he was just the one cleaning the floors of those apartments. One of the assistants turned toward him. Brian quickly stood up, grabbed the bucket, and slipped out through the side door leading to the utility area. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, his heart pounding. He could still hear voices in the living room. Camilla talking about renovations, the agent replying, numbers being discussed. He waited, silent, invisible. When the voices moved farther away, into another room, Brian hurried to gather his things. He shoved everything into his bag. He didn't finish cleaning. He couldn't stay. He left through the stairwell. He went down 15 floors without stopping. By the time he reached the ground floor, he was out of breath. But he didn't stop. He rushed through the lobby with his head down and stepped out onto the street. Only when he was 2 blocks away did he stop and lean against a wall. A tear suddenly rolled down his cheek. Maybe he cried from shame, from humiliation, from the ridiculous gap between their two worlds. He cried because he had started to like her, to trust her, to imagine that maybe. But no, there was no maybe. He was just another person she helped, a charity project, someone she pitied. He wiped his tears away and walked home in angry strides. That night, Camilla texted, "Hi, Brian, how was your day?" He stared at the screen for a long time. The words sat there, silently waiting for a reply. In the end, he didn't answer until the next morning. Busy, lots of work. Short, blunt. Camilla found it strange, but didn't push. On Saturday, she sent another text. "Are we still meeting at the park tomorrow?" Brian took hours to reply. "I can't make it. I've got a job all day Sunday." It was a lie, but he couldn't face her. Not after what he'd seen. Camilla frowned as she read the reply. "All right. Another time then. Take care." Brian didn't answer. On Sunday, Camilla and Leo went to the park as usual. Leo kept looking toward the entrance, waiting to see Nia appear. "Mom, where's Nia?" "She's not coming today, sweetheart. Her dad has to work." "But we see each other every Sunday." "I know, but sometimes things change." Leo went quiet, kicking at the grass with the tip of his shoe. "I miss her." Camilla stroked his hair. "So do I." And that was the truth. She missed Nia and Brian. She missed their conversations, the way he smiled, the way he looked at his daughter with so much love. She sent another text midweek. "Hey, everything okay? You disappeared." Brian read it and didn't reply. Camilla started to worry. She tried calling. He still didn't answer. Nia could tell something was wrong. "Daddy, aren't we going to the park anymore?" "We are, sweetheart, just not right now. But I want to see Leo." "I know, but Daddy's busy with work." Nia pouted, not pushing further. But Brian saw the sadness in her bright eyes. And that hurt more than anything else. Camilla, for her part, had no idea what was going on. She reread their conversation, trying to find anything she might have said wrong, anything that could have hurt him. She found nothing. Leo asked about Nia every day. "Mom, call Mr. Brian. Ask if Nia can come over." "I called already. Brian's very busy," Camilla sighed. "But Nia likes playing with me, right, Mom?" Camilla looked at him. "I think so." But the truth was, she didn't know anymore. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks without seeing each other, without talking. Camilla felt an emptiness she hadn't felt in years, not since her husband died. She had gotten used to Brian, to his presence, to the way he made her feel understood. And now he had vanished without an explanation, without a clear reason. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. Camilla endured 3 weeks. 3 weeks of unanswered messages, ignored calls, and empty Sundays at the park with Leo asking about Nia. On Saturday night, she made a decision. She would go to his home. She needed to understand. She needed to know what had happened. Because the silence was killing her from the inside. Deeply. On Sunday morning, she told Leo they were going to visit someone. "We're seeing Nia, right, Mom?" His eyes lit up. "We'll try." Leo quietly celebrated. Camilla pulled up the address she had saved on her phone. She put Leo in the car and drove to Brian's neighborhood. "Stay here for a minute, sweetheart. I'll see if they're home." "Yes, Mom," Leo answered obediently. Camilla stepped out of the car, walked into the building, and stopped in front of apartment 304. She took a deep breath. She knocked 3 times. Silence. She knocked again. She heard footsteps on the other side. The door slowly opened. Brian appeared. Brown hair down, old sweatpants, a simple t-shirt, his bright eyes wide in surprise. "Camilla?" "Hi," she said softly. He stood still, unsure what to do. What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." Brian looked around nervously. I'm a little busy." "Brian, please," Camilla said, her voice soft but firm. "I just want to talk. 5 minutes." He bit his lip, looked back into the apartment, then at her again. "Fine, but out here." He stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him. He folded his arms in a defensive posture. Camilla slipped her hands into her coat pockets. "You disappeared," she said plainly. "I've been busy," Brian replied curtly. "I believe you're busy. But this isn't just busy." Camilla looked directly at him. "Something happened. I can see it." Brian turned his face away. "Camilla, I really have to. I miss you," she cut in, her voice cracking slightly. "Leo and we miss you too. Very much." Brian closed his eyes, his throat tightening. "Camilla, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something that hurt you? Please tell me. At least, give me a chance to understand." He shook his head. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why are you running away from me?" Brian opened his eyes and looked at her. "I saw you," he said, voice raspy. Camilla frowned. "What do you mean?" "At the building. 3 weeks ago. I was cleaning a luxury apartment. You walked in with a team of people. Perfect suit, talking about millions of dollars." His voice broke. "And I was there, kneeling, scrubbing the floor." Camilla felt her heart tighten. She hadn't even seen him. She had no idea. "Brian, you didn't see me," he continued, angry, wiping his tears. "But I saw you, and I understood. I understood who you really are, the world you come from. And his voice quivered, "I don't belong in that world, Camilla." "Brian, no, you're a billionaire. You talk about millions like it's nothing. And I clean floors. I sit and calculate every dollar of rent, patch up old clothes." He turned away. "And I felt so small, so invisible." Camilla stepped closer and gently took his hand. Look at me, Brian. He tried to pull away, but she held on, not tightly, but firmly enough that he couldn't retreat. Brian, look at me, please. He lifted his eyes, a tear sliding down his cheek. Camilla held his hand with both of hers, filled with tenderness. I don't care about status. I don't care about money. I don't care whether you clean floors or run a company. None of that matters to me. What matters, she continued, her voice trembling with emotion, is you. And you are extraordinary. You are strong. You are brave. You raise Nia by yourself even when everything feels impossible. You never give up. You love so deeply you can see it just by looking. Brian softened. You and your daughter have brought so much joy to me and Leo. You make us laugh. You make Sundays something to look forward to. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Camilla, he whispered. I know we come from two different worlds. I'm not denying that. But when we sit on that wooden bench, watching the kids play, do you feel that distance matters then? Brian could only nod, speechless. Then please don't run from me. Don't hide. Please, Camilla whispered. I'm scared, he blurted out. I'm scared. I'm not enough. Not enough for who? Camilla asked softly. For me? He didn't answer. Silence itself was an admission. Camilla pulled him into her arms. Brian hugged her back tightly. You are enough, Brian, she whispered into his ear. More than so many people I've met in my life. Brian gripped her shirt, breathing in her scent, her warmth. For the first time in weeks, he felt safe. They stayed like that for long minutes, holding each other in the plain hallway, with the sounds of neighbors in the background, with the smell of home-cooked food drifting through the air. Eventually, Brian felt lighter. I'm sorry for disappearing, he said, his voice barely above a breath. You don't owe me an apology. Camilla shook her head. I just wanted to understand. He gave a sad smile. I think I was starting to like you in a way that isn't just being park friends, and that scared me. Camilla smiled, her eyes glistening. I felt the same. When you disappeared, it hurt. Hurt enough that I had to ask myself why I let someone into my life, only to let them have the power to leave. They looked at each other. The air between them was different now, heavier, but also more honest. Leo's in the car, Camilla said. He really wants to see Nia. Brian's eyes lit up. Nia will be thrilled. She asks about him every day. So, should we make them happy? Brian nodded, truly smiling for the first time in weeks. Absolutely. Camilla extended her hand, palm open in invitation. Brian took it, his hand trembling slightly, but this time he didn't pull away. Thank you for coming, he said softly. I'll always come, Camilla replied, squeezing his hand. Whenever you need me, and even when you think you don't. Brian squeezed her hand back, feeling confidence slowly return. Maybe, just maybe, the distance between their two worlds wasn't as great as he'd believed. And maybe they really could find a shared place for both of them. A place where he didn't have to be ashamed of who he was, and where Camilla no longer had to live alone on her mountaintop. A week after the hallway conversation, Camilla called. Are you home this afternoon? I am. What's up? Leo and I want to come visit you two. Brian smiled. Of course. You're always welcome. 3 o'clock? Perfect. Brian looked around the small apartment. It was simple. Nothing compared to Camilla's world, but it was clean, tidy, and most importantly, it was his and Nia's home. Leo is coming over to hang out with us. Nia sprang up like she had springs in her feet. Really, Daddy? Today? Today? Right at 3, the doorbell rang. Nia rushed to open it. Leo! Nia! They hugged each other tightly, as if they'd been apart for months. Camilla stood behind him, holding a box wrapped in brown craft paper. Hi. Hey, come in. Leo and Nia disappeared into the room, laughing and chattering. Camilla sat down on the sofa and set the box on the table. "What's that?" Brian asked. "A little gift for Nia." "Camilla, you didn't have to?" "I know, but I wanted to. Please, let me give it to her this time." Brian nodded. "Nia, come out here for a second." She ran out, Leo right behind her. "Yes?" "I brought you a present," Camilla said, handing her the box. Nia looked at her dad for permission. Brian nodded gently. She sat down and carefully unwrapped the paper. When she opened the box, her mouth fell open. A brand new pair of sneakers. Soft. Beautiful, pale pink. Exactly her size. "These are really for me, Aunt Camilla?" "Yes, they're for you." Tears welled up in Nia's eyes. "Thank you, Aunt Camilla," she said, crying as she flung herself into Camilla's arms. Camilla hugged her tightly. Nia wrapped her arms around her neck, sobbing, "Thank you. So much. These are the most beautiful shoes in the world." "As long as you like them, sweetheart." Brian turned away and wiped his tears. He looked at Camilla over his daughter's shoulder, mouthing, "Thank you." Camilla winked and smiled softly. Leo came over. "Can I see?" Nia held the shoes out. "Look, aren't they pretty?" "They're awesome. Now you'll run even faster." "I'll be the fastest." The two of them sat on the floor, touching and inspecting the shoes. Nia stroked every stitch. Brian walked back over to Camilla. "Camilla, you didn't have to do that. I saw her shoes at the park. The toes were ripped. I could see her little toes. I just couldn't stand it." Brian wiped his eyes. "I was planning to save up to buy her a pair. I just needed time." "I understand. Then now you can use that money to buy something else you need." Brian pulled her into a hug. Camilla held him tight. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything. For being kind. For not judging. For seeing us. I will always see you." They let go, both of their eyes red. 6 months after the night at the diner, the two families were back together in the park. But this time was different. This was a planned picnic. A blanket spread out, a basket full of food, soft laughter drifting in the air. Nia and Leo ran around, chasing invisible butterflies, laughing nonstop. Camilla and Brian sat on the blanket. Brian rested his head on Camilla's shoulder. Her arm was draped around his back, natural, familiar. The sun slowly set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Camilla stayed silent for a long moment, then took a deep breath. "Brian." "Yeah? I need to tell you something." Brian sat up a little straighter. "What is it?" Camilla found his hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "After my husband died, I thought I would never love anyone again. I thought that part of my heart was buried with him." Brian squeezed her hand tighter. "My heart shut down. I built walls around it. I only knew how to bury myself in work, take care of Leo, and get through each day. More like existing than really living." She lifted her eyes to meet his gaze. "But then you and Nia walked in, and everything started to change." Brian's eyes burned. "Little by little, you two pulled my heart open again. You reminded me what it feels like to be moved, to worry about someone, to look forward to seeing someone, to miss a person so much it aches." She smiled, her voice trembling. "Brian, you and Nia brought light back to me. To Leo, too." Brian slid his arm around her neck and pulled Camilla into a tight hug. Camilla embraced him, letting his tears soak into her shoulder. "I love you," she whispered. Brian closed his eyes, letting the words sink into every fiber of his heart. "I love you too. So much." They held each other for a long time. Only the wind and the children's laughter in the background. By the time it was fully dark, the sky was full of sparkling stars. Camilla pulled Brian to his feet. The kids started packing up their things. The four of them headed home. Nia held one of Brian's hands and one of Leo's. Camilla had her arm looped over Brian's shoulders. In the car, the two kids in the back seat chattered about next week's games, about drawing a whole family picture to stick on the fridge. Brian drove, his right hand holding Camilla's. "How do you feel?" he asked. Camilla glanced at the mirror, seeing the two kids laughing in the back. Then she turned to look at Brian. "I'm happier than I ever thought I could be." "Then we're the same." "Me too." She squeezed his hand. Brian smiled. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing us. For not walking away. For loving us." Brian lifted her hand and kissed it lightly. "Thank you for opening the door and letting me in." In that car, with streetlights passing by, with children's voices and laughter filling the air, two people who once thought their hearts were shattered suddenly realized, love never truly disappears. It just waits for the right person, at the right time. Sometimes it starts with a simple dinner at an old diner. Sometimes it grows through Sundays in the park. Sometimes it is built from small things: a shared order of fries, a new pair of shoes, a ride home in the rain. But when it is real, when it is right, it has the power to change everything. Camilla and Brian had found that. A real love. A love that mended two hearts they thought could never heal, and brought two lonely families together under one roof. A love strong enough to keep going, no matter what lay ahead.